The day the little girl stepped forward, the world seemed to hold its breath. Dark clouds hung low over the city, and the air outside the charity gala shimmered with a strange heaviness, as if something long buried was about to surface. Cameras flashed, luxury cars idled, and inside the marble-lined hall stood a woman who had everything money could buy, except peace. She was known as a self-made millionaire, admired for her success, envied for her lifestyle, and pitied only by those who knew the one thing she could never replace. And then, from the crowd, a small voice rose, trembling yet certain, carrying words that would fracture her carefully guarded heart. "Mom, I know that missing child." In that moment, the woman's knees weakened, her breath caught, and the walls she had built over 20 years began to crumble. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment to engage with this video. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that sometimes find us when we least expect them, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps bring more stories like this to life. The millionaire woman's name was Eleanor Whitmore, and her life read like a glossy magazine feature. She grew up poor, clawed her way through college, built a real estate empire from nothing, and became a symbol of resilience. Yet behind the tailored suits and confident smiles was a grief so deep it shaped every decision she made. 20 years earlier, her 3-year-old daughter had vanished from a playground in broad daylight. There were searches, headlines, candlelight vigils, and years of unanswered questions. The case went cold, the world moved on, and Eleanor learned how to survive without ever truly living. Every success she achieved felt hollow, every celebration muted by the echo of a child's ladder she could barely remember. She funded charities, sponsored missing child campaigns, and hosted galas like this one not just out of generosity, but out of a quiet hope that somehow, someday, the universe might answer her pain. The gala that evening was meant to raise awareness for lost children. Ironically, Eleanor avoided the photographs of smiling faces pinned to boards around the hall. They hurt too much. She stood near the stage, listening to speeches blur together, her mind wandering back to memories she rarely allowed herself to touch. She remembered small hands sticky with ice cream, a red ribbon tied into messy curls, and the way her daughter used to fall asleep clutching Eleanor's thumb. Those memories were dangerous, they could undo her. So she focused on the present, on donors and applause, on appearing strong. That was when she noticed the girl. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old, standing alone near the edge of the crowd. She wore a faded hoodie and shoes that looked too big, her dark eyes scanning the room with an intensity far older than her years. She didn't belong among the diamonds and silk gowns, yet she stood her ground as if summoned by something invisible. Security had almost ushered her away when Eleanor's gaze met hers. There was something unsettlingly familiar in the way the child looked at her, not with awe or fear, but with recognition. Eleanor felt a chill she couldn't explain. The girl stepped forward, her hands clenched, her small frame shaking with courage. She said she knew the missing child Eleanor had been searching for all these years. Those words struck Eleanor like a physical blow. The room seemed to spin, applause fading into a distant roar. She had heard false hopes before, psychics, scammers, strangers chasing reward money. She had learned to steel herself against disappointment. But this was different. The girl's eyes didn't waver. They carried the weight of truth, or at least the belief in it. Eleanor felt tears burn her eyes as her composure finally shattered in front of everyone. In a private room away from the cameras, Eleanor listened as the girl explained her story in halting fragments. She had grown up in foster homes, moved from place to place, carrying memories that never quite made sense. There were flashes of a woman crying, a park, a red ribbon, and a name whispered in the dark. The girl had recently seen Eleanor's face on a poster for the gala and felt a jolt of recognition so strong it scared her. She didn't fully understand it, only that she couldn't ignore it. Something inside her insisted she come here tonight. Eleanor's mind raced between hope and terror. She studied the girl's features, tracing similarities she had imagined 1,000 times on strangers' faces. The curve of the eyebrows, the dimple when the girl nervously pressed her lips together, the faint birthmark near her ear. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing one step forward could either lead to salvation or shatter her forever. Years of grief had taught Eleanor to expect nothing, yet her heart betrayed her, pounding with a desperate, fragile hope. The process that followed was agonizingly slow. Authorities were contacted, DNA tests arranged, and the media buzzed with speculation. Eleanor withdrew from the spotlight, retreating into a limbo she knew too well. The girl, whose name was Lily, was placed in temporary care while the investigation unfolded. During those weeks, Eleanor slept little, haunted by dreams of losing her child all over again. She questioned herself relentlessly. Was she setting herself up for another heartbreak? Was she projecting her longing onto an innocent child? Yet every instinct told her this was no coincidence. Lily, meanwhile, struggled with her own storm of emotions. She had never known stability, never felt chosen. The idea that she might belong to someone, that her life might have roots, was both intoxicating and terrifying. She remembered being told as a toddler to stay quiet, to forget certain things. She remembered being passed from one adult to another, each goodbye carving a little more uncertainty into her soul. Now, for the first time, someone was looking at her not as a burden or a case file, but as a miracle. When the results finally came back, the truth landed with a force that left everyone reeling. The DNA confirmed what Eleanor's heart had dared to believe. Lily was her daughter. The missing child the city had mourned and forgotten was standing alive, breathing, and impossibly close. Eleanor collapsed, years of suppressed grief erupting into sobs that shook her entire body. It wasn't the neat, cinematic reunion people imagine. It was raw, messy, and overwhelming. 2 decades of loss couldn't be erased in a moment, but something broken deep within her began to mend. The days that followed were filled with cautious steps forward. Eleanor knew she couldn't simply reclaim the years they'd lost. Lily was not the toddler she remembered, but a young girl shaped by experiences Eleanor could barely comprehend. They spent time together slowly, learning each other in quiet moments. Eleanor discovered Lily loved drawing and had a habit of humming when she was nervous. Lily learned Eleanor drank her coffee black and kept every old photograph locked away in a drawer she rarely opened. Their bond grew not through grand gestures, but through shared silences and tentative smiles. The truth about Lily's disappearance eventually emerged. A woman struggling with addiction had taken her, convinced she was rescuing the child from neglect that never existed. Fear and poor choices had spiraled into a tragedy that lasted 20 years. By the time the woman realized the damage she'd done, it was too late to undo it. The revelation brought anger and sorrow, but also a strange sense of closure. Eleanor chose not to let hatred consume what little time she had left with her daughter. Rebuilding a relationship after such a loss was not easy. Lily grappled with trust, sometimes pulling away just as Eleanor reached out. Eleanor battled guilt, blaming herself for a moment of distraction that had cost them everything. Therapy, patience, and honesty became their lifelines. Slowly, laughter returned to Eleanor's home, filling rooms that had echoed with loneliness for decades. The mansion that once felt like a monument to success now began to feel like a place where life could grow again. The story captured the public's heart, but Eleanor shielded Lily from the worst of the attention. She refused to let her daughter become a symbol or a headline. Instead, she focused on giving Lily what she'd missed most: safety, consistency, and love without conditions. Eleanor continued her philanthropic work, now with renewed purpose. She spoke not as a grieving mother, but as one who had witnessed the impossible. Her message shifted from despair to hope, reminding families that even in the darkest uncertainty, miracles could still find their way home. As months turned into a year, Eleanor and Lily stood together at another charity event, this time hand in hand. The pain of the past hadn't vanished, but it no longer defined them. Lily smiled more easily now, her eyes brighter, her shoulders less tense. Eleanor found herself rediscovering joy in simple things: school projects, movie nights, arguments over chores. These ordinary moments felt extraordinary, a gift she once believed she'd never receive. If this story is touching something deep within you, if it's reminding you of lost time, fragile hope, or the power of compassion, please take a moment now to like, share, and engage with this video. Your support means more than you know, and it helps these stories reach others who might need them. Just before we end, we have a special request. Please comment below and share what this story made you feel, or whether you believe in second chances and reunions that defy all odds. Your words matter, and they might inspire someone who is holding on to hope tonight. In the end, Eleanor often reflected on that rainy evening when a small, brave girl changed her life with a single sentence. She realized that wealth had given her comfort, but love had given her meaning. The years they lost could never be reclaimed, but the years ahead were finally theirs. And in that truth, both mother and daughter found something more powerful than answers: healing.